up, swashbucklers? You're listening to Under the Crossbones, episode number 170. My name is Phil Johnson. I am the ship's taxidermist and your host for the show today, and sick, as you can probably tell by listening to my voice. This happens periodically on shows over the years where I am not well and the show must go on. So that's a thing that's happening today. 4 days into this fun head cold that occurred 2 hours before I reached the first tour date on this current tour that I'm on. I'm coming to you today from Medford, Oregon, and where I'm about halfway through this Northwest run. Shows have been good, surprisingly, not surprisingly, but I always have to go on stage and act like I feel way better than I actually do. It is that performer, show must go on mentality. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shows so far. Yeah, so I'm halfway through. I got 5 more shows to go, and it's been good. Usually, what happens is when I get on stage, I feel way better than I do when I get off stage. And that's happened to a point on this run. But yeah, even on stage, been a little draggy. But the audience doesn't know it, so I must be doing my job pretty well. Here we are in episode number 170. A fun fact about the number 170. And I didn't know about this fact, not even completely sure of the provenance of this fact, but according to Urban Dictionary online, 170 is the number that represents a situation in which a funny joke is told to a person or a group of people, but goes unappreciated because the audience is unable to understand or appreciate it properly. As in, somebody tells a funny joke, somebody else says, I don't get it, and the first person says, wow, you're pulling a real 170. Now, I've never heard of this, but it is certainly a situation that I can get behind. That happens all the time in my job, actually. There's a joke in my act right now. It's a Cathedral architecture joke, which I think is very funny, and I don't think a single audience has gotten the joke yet, but I haven't decided. I might keep it in there. Sometimes I do one just for me, and it acts as a nice little button at the end of that particular bit, but it also doesn't get a laugh. So I got to figure out what to do with that one. Maybe it's me pulling a real 170 on that one. Who knows? So my guest on the show today is Michael Melzer, and he is the author of a book called The Patriot Pirate about Hipolito Bouchard. And Hipolito Bouchard is a privateer / pirate, depending on who you're talking to, and figures wildly into California's early Spanish history. And so we don't have a lot of pirate stories out here on the West Coast, and so it was definitely fun to get into this one. And as it turns out, Michael is arguing that he was way more privateer than he was pirate. So we're going to talk about that really fun book and episode and talk, and I think you're going to dig it, especially if you're West Coast, because we don't get, like I said, we don't get a lot of stories out here. But here I am out here on the West Coast, Oregon, Medford, Oregon, and I come to Medford, Oregon about once a year to play Chadwick's here, but honestly, I mostly come so I can get a garbage grinder at Luigi's Sandwiches. That's why I come to Medford, and I'm going to be doing that today. As soon as I'm done talking to you, actually, it's going to be good. I'm excited about that. And of course, there are more shows coming up. On December the 18th, I'll be at Collector's Choice, Snohomish, Washington. On December the 19th, Seven Cedars Casino in Sequim, Washington. December 21st, I'll be at the Seven Nightclub in Bend, Oregon. Then I head back to the Bay Area. December the 28th, I'll be at the Vikings Clubhouse in Hayward, California. On January 2nd, Clayton Valley Bowl, Concord, California. January 3rd, the Bistro back in Hayward, California. January 12th, Inner Fog Wine Bar, San Francisco, California. And January 15th at the Throckmorton Theater in Mill Valley, California. That's always an interesting one. You never know who's going to show up there. We get some legends. Dana Carvey plays there a lot. Robin Williams used to hang out there a lot when he was around. So Throckmorton Theater, very exciting place to perform. They also pay well for a 10-minute set, which is always nice. After that, I'm headed to Minnesota, Wisconsin. Go check out the tour dates. Go to underthecrossbones.com. Click on the tour dates button, and that'll let you know when I'm coming to tell jokes and sing songs near you. And I won't be sick when I get there, so that'll be awesome. If you're enjoying the show, come join us over on Facebook. Facebook.com/UnderTheCrossbones. On Twitter, we're at Under Crossbones. And of course, make sure that you are subscribed in whatever you're listening to this to right now. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Slacker, Podcast Addict, Overcast, whatever. Click that subscribe button so that you get those new episodes every Tuesday as soon as they come out. And of course, all the show notes for this episode or at underthecrossbones.com/170. Man, it is chilly up here in Medford. It started out nice, but now it's getting cold and windy and rainy, and I'm itching to get back to some sunnier climates so that I can wear my Pirata clothing. Heck yeah, Pirata clothing, man. They got a brand new website, and it is a pirate utopia of shirts, hats, clothing, swimwear, and more. It's all steeped in the lore of pirates and treasure, and it is perfect for your next Caribbean cruise or your trip to the Keys or wherever you're going to go find some sun. Or you know what? Maybe you just turn the heater on in your house and whip out your Pirata clothing and, throw on a bikini. Dude, do it. Because you never know. You can make it nice and hot in your house, and then it's summer in your house. You can wear it all year long. They got new gear weekly. So go check it out at pirataclothing.com, and be sure to click that ship wheel on the website to get in on Blackbeard's treasure hunt for some extra goodies. And if you want some discounts, you can get a discount from them. It's real easy. Just grab your phone, text the word pirate to 21000. Text that word pirate to 21000. They will send you discount for some stuff. And again, that is www.pirataclothing.com. Go check it out. If you want to help support the show, that would be awesome of you. Go to underthecrossbones.com/support. Right there's a PayPal box where you can put a donation in of whatever you like. I always say the price of a bottle of rum is a good way to go because I don't drink, so you can just send me the money. Do it up, and that helps support the show. There's also an Amazon banner there if you're getting down to your last-minute Christmas shopping and you need to get your Amazon shopping done. That's where I did all mine this year. Just click that Amazon banner on the support page. Amazon kicks me back a few shekels. Doesn't cost you anything extra. It's a good way to help support the show. If you want to be a sponsor of the show, if you got a thing that you think pirate audience might be digging on, you can do that too. It's cheap, it's easy. We'll take care of it. All right. So hey, let's do this. I'm gonna stop talking because my voice is starting to go, and I still got 5 more shows to do, including one tonight. So it's gonna be an adventure. Always is. Let's get into my interview right now with Michael Melzer, author of The Patriot Pirate, about Hipolito Bouchard, and it is going to be a fun one. Check it out. Here we go. Here's Michael Melzer. Enjoy. Your book is called The Patriot Pirate, and it's about Hipolito Bouchard, which is not a character that a lot of us are as familiar with as we should. And as I mentioned to you a minute ago, I have not had a chance to read your book yet, which I'm sorry for, but I'm going to. Can you give us sort of the thumbnail sketch of who Hipolito Bouchard is and where he fits into pirate history?
So, for 200 years, the Captain Bouchard has generally been described as California's only pirate.
Okay.
But truth be told, he was actually a privateer.
Okay.
In the fall of 1818, he led a series of incursions against California, which was mostly Spanish territory back then. And he captured and he later burned the colonial capital of Monterey.
Okay.
And went on to raid near Santa Barbara and San Juan Capistrano. So, sounds like a pirate, but the actual history is much more interesting than the mythical tale of all the plunder and everything.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, the question of pirate versus privateer is always one of perspective, because the same argument can be made for Henry Morgan and Captain Kidd and, those type of guys. They were somebody's privateer.
Exactly.
But to everybody else, they were pirates. So whose side was he on? Who was he privateering for?
Basically, he was a privateer for Argentina. That was one of the many Latin American countries that was in revolution at the time, revolting against Spain. And so he was French born. That's why his name is French.
Okay.
But he had become an Argentinian citizen as an immigrant. And when the wars of independence broke out, he ended up joining the rebellion and offering his services because he had previously been trained in Napoleon's navy and had seen warfare in the Mediterranean.
Interesting. So time period wise, we're talking early 1800s?
Yes, exactly. Bouchard was born in 1780 in kind of near Saint-Tropez there on the Mediterranean coast of France.
Okay, interesting. So he's fighting for Argentina against the Spanish. And of course, if we get California centric here for a second, the Spanish were all over California, hence all of our Spanish names here. And what brought him to California to fight here?
So basically, it's really an amazing voyage. Bouchard is most remembered for this 2-year voyage that he did from 1817 to 1819, where he went all the way across the world, leaving from Buenos Aires, heading east and attacking the Spanish in the Philippines before continuing on. He resupplied in Hawaii and then went on to Spanish California and did the attacks here as well as in Mexico and Central America before he finally ended his voyage in Chile, which had become independent already. So it was safe territory for him.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Okay, so he makes this 2-year voyage to all these different places. If he's fighting for Argentina, why does he go to California? Does Argentina have concerns in that area?
Well, basically, it was, the borders were very flexible during the Wars of Independence, but essentially his remit as a privateer was to, plunder or capture Spanish property anywhere in the world. So at that time, California was part of the province of Alta California.
Sure. So
it was one of the legitimate areas that was still under Spanish control. But he wasn't necessarily, the only outcome wasn't necessarily plunder. He would have loved if there had been some kind of revolution here that might have, joined up against the Spanish control and all of that. But it was very unrealistic knowing California at the time.
Right. Yeah, even now.
Well, yeah. Well, people are talking about, California independence lately. So, hey, who knows?
That's true. Yeah, only the weird parts of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time I drive north through the state of Jefferson signs, I'm like, I don't know, you guys.
Brother.
Yeah.
yeah. That was something. I grew up in Milwaukee, so all of that was very new to me when I moved out here.
Nice. And so tell me a little bit then about this Battle of Monterey. Monterey is a place that I've spent a lot of time in. I've played gigs there. My girlfriend and I just go there for the weekend all the time, so tell me a little bit about that particular story.
So basically, Bouchard had left Buenos Aires with one frigate called La Argentina. And in Hawaii, the craziest thing was when they got to Hawaii, they found another Argentinian privateer that was in the hands of King Kamehameha there. And so it turned out that this other Argentinian privateer, the crew had mutinied and taken the ship to Hawaii, which was kind of a hideout for, people escaping their past to some degree back then. And they sold, that's very true. And they sold the ship to King Kamehameha and basically were just living it up around the islands. So when Bouchard got there, he saw a great opportunity. He negotiated with the king to get the ship back, and King Kamehameha allowed him to go all across the islands and track down the mutineers and punish them. And the ringleader was actually court-martialed and executed on Kauai. And so then he had this second ship. So together, this second ship was called the Santa Rosa. So the Argentina and the Santa Rosa together sailed to California. They actually stopped in the Russian territory in the north of California first, and they got some supplies. And then they sailed down to Monterey. And basically, they had hoped for a surprise attack, and they sent the Santa Rosa into Monterey Bay with the American flag raised so that they would try to pretend that maybe they were like a visiting merchant from the U.S., But little did they know, the Spaniards had already been tipped off that they were coming because somebody had overheard the plan in Hawaii and had reported it to them. So everybody in California was already on guard that, these privateers might be coming any moment now.
Okay.
So when they finally showed up, it was pretty obvious to the Spanish that, well, these guys are probably the ones we heard about. So unfortunately, when they were trying to do a surprise attack and they finally raised the Argentinian flag and the ship Santa Rosa was going to fire at the battery of cannons in Monterey. Monterey was already ready.
Okay.
And so they had a big firefight. The ship got totally torn up with cannon fire from the fort at Monterey. And it looked bad for Bouchard and his people at first. But Bouchard still had more numbers and more armed men on his other ship. So the next morning, he landed just a bunch of these guys, and it was a very diverse crew, people from all over the world. There were Americans, there were Hawaiian Islanders, there were Portuguese, Africans, etc. So this motley crew that maybe, if you were looking at them, might look like a pirate crew out of a movie or something. This whole crew landed at Monterrey and marched on the fortification there called El Castillo, and then basically took over the Presidio. The Spanish forces didn't put up much of a resistance, and they had to flee inland, kind of near Salinas.
Okay.
And so Argentina's flag was raised over the capital of California, and they held the town for several days, and they resupplied and took everything they could find. The Hawaiian Islanders took some of the clothes that they found from locals because they had been dressed for Hawaiian weather, and it can be pretty chilly in Monterey this time of year.
Oh yeah,
and so ultimately Bouchard put out an ultimatum to the governor of California, because when the Santa Rosa had been fired upon, they had actually said that if some people don't surrender ashore, they were going to sink the ship. So 3 prisoners were taken that had been aboard the ship.
Okay.
So Bouchard tried to send an ultimatum to the governor that if he didn't return the prisoners to Bouchard, they would burn the town. And the governor of California at that time, he didn't even reply, probably because he was waiting for reinforcements that were going to come from San Francisco and Southern California. So after a few days, Bouchard called in his threat and burned a lot of Monterey Presidio. But he did leave the chapel there, the Catholic chapel there, because it's supposed to be, a war between governments, not just a war against everybody like a pirate would be.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Monterey is interesting because it's one of the places in California that really keeps up its history and uses its history as a draw to bring people into the city. I mean, we've got missions and stuff all over the state and things like that. But you can take that Monterey history walk and things like that. So from pre-fire or pre this battle, what's left in that city that we can see?
Really, the only building that you can see left that would have been around at Bouchard's time is the chapel. It's called the Royal Presidio Chapel, and it's a beautiful, old stone building. It's in the center of Monterey, and you could almost argue that thanks to Bouchard, that building is still standing.
Is that in the Presidio, in the military base?
It's very confusing. So in the Spanish times, what was called the Presidio is really where now we would call downtown Monterey is.
Okay, yeah.
And so the Americans, when they took over this area, they kind of just took that word Presidio and named the fort that they put on that hill sort of next to Monterey downtown.
Okay.
They called that the Presidio. So it's confusing. There's an old Presidio and then what we currently call the Presidio.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, because there's what essentially is the Military Language Institute now is mostly what's at the Presidio, Monterey.
Right, yeah, it's very known for that. And unfortunately, you can't see it, but the fortification that was there at the time that Bouchard took over, it's kind of there, but it's buried under the hill. So you have no sense that there was ever an old, Spanish fort right there on the Presidio Hill.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. It's the perfect place for it. It's the obvious place for it, though. But I'm going to have to go hunt up the chapel next time we're there. That'll be cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a beautiful building. I mean, you're right. Monterey has a lot of the allure of old California. There's so much of the history of the state happened there. And they're very serious about the history. I actually participated a couple of weekends ago in a series of bicentennial events about the Bouchard incursion.
Okay.
And it was a great day of fun. They had reenactors, they had a tall ship in the harbor with fake cannon fire and everything, and a bunch of lectures. It was a great day.
Neat. And were you speaking there?
Yeah, I was one of the presenters. I'm always kind of representing the partisan view pro Bouchard.
Okay.
To kind of correct the old pirate history. Not because Bouchard is just a flawless hero, but just because, it's a bigger international context that kind of gets ignored. It seems like basically the Americans have taken the perspective of the Spaniards that were here.
Interesting.
And a lot of the Spaniards, they had called him a pirate at the time.
As they would. Why do you think that is? Why do you think California has taken on the viewpoint that he was a pirate rather than a privateer, since he was out to sort of liberate this area from the Spanish?
I think it's the fact that in early California, it was, very Wild West kind of a place. You had the gold rush and everything. Sure. And so I don't think a lot of people were really that focused on the history. And I mean, it was up to that time. It's really fair to say California was part of Latin American history.
Sure.
And the ones who came here, which you could symbolically call an act of piracy when it was taken over, those guys were not interested in learning the local context of everything. And the ones that they did talk to, they had said there was this pirate that came years before and all that. So it just sort of grew from there as an inherited perspective, I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Apathy.
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, if we were going to see it more unfavorably, I guess you could say it as, the Spanish at the time, the loyal royal Spanish, didn't think the Latin American countries would have been capable of self-rule.
Right.
And you can find a lot of Americans, I think, that had that perspective, certainly back then. With our foreign policy.
Now, yeah.
And now, yeah. Wasn't going to point it out, but yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's not me, but they're out there. So interesting. That's really, really cool. There's now partially I have to go now rediscover Monterey based around this story, which I think is great. And also, I'm thinking about those 1800s Hawaiian sailors just going into the gift shop at Fisherman's Wharf and picking up a t-shirt.
Oh, yeah. It would be an amazing image.
So this is your first book, your first time writer. What was it about this story that connected you so much to it that you decided, I got to write a book?
It was, my interest in Bouchard really grew gradually, kind of out of my life experiences. Because as I said, I grew up in Milwaukee, but I moved out here to LA area for college.
Okay.
And I started living with an Argentinian immigrant who was a history graduate.
Okay.
And I became a history graduate as well. And so I transculturalized over time quite a bit into the world of, asado and football and dulce de leche. And so essentially I got to know California more over the years. I'd heard that there had been this pirate attack back in the Spanish days by a Frenchman. And later I saw the flags of California on a pier in Santa Barbara, and I saw the Argentinian flag flying. So I said, okay. I was very surprised when I realized it was the same story being described, because this was before Wikipedia existed that I first got into it. But my Argentine American partner in crime, she has many family members here in Southern California, and talking with her brother-in-law in particular, I learned more of the Bouchard story from an Argentine perspective.
Okay.
So I started doing my own research. It kept escalating, and I really went down the rabbit hole with it all. So I just couldn't believe that the story is not more widely known.
Sure, yeah.
And at this point, I've made several extended trips to Argentina, so I do feel a certain kinship with the place and a need to redress the pirate story here in California.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's not as well known as you might think it is as it should be out here, because it is a pretty significant part of the shaping of California culture, that whole part of it. But then again, in school, we didn't get, Spanish California history past like 7th grade, I think. I think I might have had some in junior college or something like that, but it tends to get brushed over, let's build I can't even think of the word now. Let's build a mission.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's all about the missions.
Yeah. Let's build a mission out of cardboard, and then there you go. That's Spanish history in California. So I think there's way more to it than we actually get in school. But then again, they keep making history, so there's always more they got to stuff into the air.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. It's the hope is that I would actually love to get a unit on Bouchard into California schools.
Right.
But that's in its preliminary stages right now.
Nice. So you went to Los Angeles to go to school. Was it UCLA or one of the other schools?
No, it was actually Art Center College of Design here in Pasadena.
Oh, okay. And so what was your choice in going there about?
So I was a film major, if you can believe it, to begin with.
Okay.
And, after a little bit of exposure to the industry, I realized I preferred just doing freelance video work and living around here.
Okay.
So I actually finished my degree with the University of Maryland University College to get a graduate degree in history.
Okay.
And so basically I have, my historian researcher side, and I have my media side.
Okay.
So actually my Bouchard project, I originally had envisioned it as a sort of National Geographic kind of documentary. And on a trip to Buenos Aires, I actually met some fellow Bouchardistas, I guess we can call ourselves. And, I shot a few locations while I was down there, but it just became obvious that to really do this story right, it would be, a huge budget that you would need.
Sure.
So I opted for a book instead. A lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. And so what were you doing? What was your plan before the book, or was that the plan?
Basically, yeah, the plan was I was going to shoot a little bit of what could become a documentary and then raise funds to finish it.
Okay.
And so instead, I ran a Kickstarter campaign back in the fall of 2015. And so I put up a YouTube video and worked to raise funds for that, and it worked. So I was able to raise the funds for the publishing, for extra research, and especially for hiring my amazing illustrator, Phoebe Herring.
Okay.
Who really helped bring the visuals to life in a cinematic way. So it sort of felt like I was doing the film part a little bit, visually anyway.
Nice. How did you find her?
It was just through searching on the internet, some of these freelancer websites. I really lucked out. She's actually based in Cornwall in the UK.
Oh, wow.
So we've never actually met face to face, only through Skype. So it's a very digital workflow.
Tell me more about your Kickstarter, because the story behind every Kickstarter is different, and there's always somebody listening who is thinking about starting a Kickstarter for one reason or another. So the story of how they go is always very educational. What can you tell me about yours?
It was, I could tell you it was one of the most stressful things I've done in many years. Because, it was, you see the money inch up slowly. It's kind of right at the beginning. It was a lot of family and friends that contributed first. And then it kind of plateaued for a while, and, it runs for a few weeks. And so I really had to hit the street a lot. So I had, a lot of brochures, like little postcards printed out, some in English, some in Spanish. And I went all over LA area, Orange County, asking places if I could put them, leaving them in libraries, in Argentinian restaurants, all over the place. And I'd go to, big events, especially like in El Pueblo de Los Angeles, like in downtown. I went to some events there where I would just be at a booth with my promotional materials and hoping to talk to people. So I'd get a lot of people that actually donated in cash that didn't, have a Kickstarter. They didn't know how that stuff worked necessarily.
Right.
So it was a lot of note taking manually with people's contact information and everything, so that I could get them a copy of the book when it was all done. So it was, a couple hundred people in the end that contributed.
That's amazing, because that is an unusual story for Kickstarter, because usually it is I had a fan base of sorts to start with that I could go to and talk to those people, and that was the seed that, besides that, and then the word of mouth from those people that would push it over. But you were not starting with a fan base of any sort. You were starting cold and really just going out and shaking hands and kissing babies.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it escalated very much into a promotional side that's not in my wheelhouse. I'm kind of doing everything backwards. Like, now that the book's out, I'm like, oh, I should start promoting it more.
That's really great, though. I mean, what was your goal? What were you trying to raise?
I don't even remember the figure off the top of my head now. It was around $10,000.
Okay, so that's not an insignificant amount by any means. Do you have any idea what the average donation was?
It was a huge variance. The biggest donation I got was, about $1,000. So that was good right there.
Sure.
But then I would say about 90% of the donors were small cash amounts, like between, $20, $40, just nothing. A few people just $5 in singles.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's fantastic. So were you basically then selling, since you were selling to an Argentine audience, you were basically saying, here's a story that needs to be told from a different perspective. We all know it, but nobody else does. Was that kind of the angle?
Well, it was a bit of that, and a bit of it was known. It's pretty known to Argentinians, at least Argentinians that are very versed in their history. But but my goal actually was more to be crossing over to just anyone in the U.S. because it's not a history that exclusively belongs to Argentina, because Bouchard later fought for Peru. I mean, and all of these things were sort of one movement of independence from the different countries. So to me, it's a part of Mexican history. It's a part of U.S. history. There were a lot of Americans, on the ships and everything. It's part of European history. It's part of belongs to the whole Pacific Rim in many ways.
Sure.
So my goal for the book was to make it just very accessible to any common reader that wouldn't know any of these histories or has no personal connection to Argentina or Latin American history generally.
Okay, what do you think was in it for the people that were giving you money to write the book? What did they see as the advantage in it? Not advantage, but what they obviously saw something that they thought, I want to see this in the world. What was that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's always good to brush off something that's amazingly internationally connected and kind of binds us all together. But it's also just a great yarn. I mean, it's kind of out of a Joseph Conrad novel. It's a very brutal story, a lot of it, but it's just a fascinating history, and it's a Pan-American history. So I think a lot of people were just hoping to see that history represented in a new way, because it is true. I mean, I've actually in the process of doing a Kickstarter and before, when I was doing just even early research, I had to face several Argentinians who would be really bent out of shape about, in the U.S., they call our hero Bouchard a pirate. Like, I have to answer for that. And, and I've had to explain at various points that in the U.S., nobody knows of Bouchard. And in California, yes, some people call Bouchard a pirate, but even in California, most people don't know anything about Bouchard or this history.
Right.
But it is crazier. It's actually crazier to me, the degree to which I've actually met people in California who have come up to me just full of hate about Bouchard.
Really?
And invariably they're kind of Anglo-Californians that obviously Bouchard was not connected to their family. They act as though Bouchard maybe killed their great grandparent or something. But it's like, if your name is Smith or something, you probably are not descended from one of the original California. So I just don't understand why some people would get that perspective so passionately.
Yeah, was it just they had formed that opinion and were sticking to it despite a lack of facts or knowledge behind it?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's understandable, if you're living in Monterey, to say, well, this guy attacked Monterey, he burned the town, and all this. It doesn't sound like a noble enterprise, but it was not like a terrifying episode. And the only ones who died were actually people from Bouchard's crew that died during the cannon fire battle with the ship and the fort.
That's interesting.
So it's not the most tragic story ever or anything. It's not thousands of dead or anything. But I don't know. I think there's always been a strong romanticism for the mission period in California.
Sure.
And then also I would say that there's maybe a little bit of the fact that here on the West Coast, there's just not as much maritime pirate history compared to the East Coast.
Yeah.
So maybe there's just nobody wants me to rain on the parade of Bouchard being the one pirate in California.
We got one pirate. Now you got to go mess it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
And now you're talking about revolution in South America and all this. Like, what? He's just a pirate. He's just a plunderer. I don't want to know more.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to actually reading the book like I was supposed to over the weekend. But I think it's going to be really very cool. What are you doing now post book?
So right now I've actually been just doing a lot of outreach about the book, a lot of lectures around California. I mentioned the great bicentennial events were held in Monterey recently.
Yeah.
And then I was, even before that, earlier in the month, there was also a bicentennial event down in San Juan Capistrano.
Nice.
Where they had a mock trial where they finally, 200 years later, put Bouchard on trial for piracy.
Okay.
And it was open to the public and people could vote. And to my surprise, Bouchard was acquitted.
Really?
So I do think the pirate narrative is finally shifting in California.
Nice. Give the people some facts.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
We'll miss the Jack Sparrow representation, but oh well. The real history is even more interesting.
Yeah, I think so. So where is a good place for people to go get the book online? Where's your preferred outlet?
Well, you can order it through my website easily enough, and it's available at certain retailers here in California, mostly in Monterey.
Okay.
You can also order it on Amazon. You can pre-order right now the ebook, which is going to come out next week.
Great.
And my website is melzermedia.com. I probably should mention that as well.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Okay, great. Very cool. Very cool. All right, man. This has been super fun. Is there anything I forgot to ask you about that you want everybody to know?
No. This is a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. All right, cool, man. I will talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
And there it is, friends. That is my interview with Michael Melzer, author of The Patriot Pirate. If you want to find out more about what he's up to, check out the book. Go to melzermedia.com/publishing. That'll take you right there. And of course, there is a link in the show notes at underthecrossbones.com/170, or just open up whatever you're listening to this on right now. Poke that album cover, that episode album art cover right there. It'll take you to the show notes. It'll be linked in there as well. If you want to find out more about the Royal Presidio Chapel, which is something I'm still got to go investigate and check it out in Monterey, because I've never seen it. I probably have driven past it at some point. But anyway, go to sancarloscathedral.org, and that's where you can find out more. I'm also going to put a couple of photos in the show notes, an old photo, new photo, just so you can see what it looks like then and now, because that's some cool stuff. By the way, total side note, if you are digging on this Spanish period, Alta California kind of vibe that we're doing today, I can highly recommend, absolutely fictional, but the Zorro series that Disney did in the late 50s, starring a guy, what's his face there, is a fantastic show, and actually really still holds up very well. I watched it a couple years ago again. Henry Calvin as Sergeant Garcia is one of the best comic acting performances ever. So if you haven't seen those old Zorro things that Disney did in the late 50s, go look them up. They're fun to watch. And it takes place in 1820, which is about 2 years after this whole Hipolito Bouchard thing. So that's out there. Go find it. Did you like the episode? Did you hear something you wanted to add to the conversation, or something you learned that you didn't know before? There's a whole lot in this one I learned that I didn't know before. Come join us over on Facebook. Tell us all about it. Facebook.com/underthecrossbones. Or hit us on Twitter at twitter.com/undercrossbones. Jump into the conversation. We always like when you do that. And we're doing all sorts of fun stuff online there as well. That if you're just listening to the show, you're missing out on part of the fun. So come on, join us over there. We're sponsored today, of course, by Pirate Radio, the Treasure Coast, WKKC-DB, playing the best music of today's hits and yesterday's classics. And Pirate Radio Talk, playing the best pirate shows, including Under the Crossbones, 24/7, all commercial free. To listen, go to pirateradioTheTreasureCoast.com, or grab the Pirate Radio WKKC-DB app in your favorite app store for the music station. Or go to PirateRadioTC.com, or grab the Pirate Radio Talk for the talk station, or just, go, okay, Google, and your Google phone will break. See, every time I do that, I'm looking at my notes on my Google phone right now, and my Google phone was like thinking I was talking about it. If you say, all right, I'm going to whisper it so my phone doesn't hear. If you say, okay, Google, and you ask it to play Pirate Radio, The Treasure Coast, or Under the Crossbones, it'll do that for you. Or if you got yourself an Alexa device, one of those home surveillance machines, I'm going to buy one anyway. But anyway, if you have an Alexa, you can do the same thing. Just say, hey Alexa, or whatever the command is, and it'll do that for you. It's all brought to you by iTreasure Radio, the very best digital media from independently owned stations at iTreasureRadio.com. Let me tell you a little bit about what's coming up over the next couple weeks. We're at the end of the year here, and that gets a little bit squirrely for everybody. Not everybody's got time to listen to a podcast. Doing the holiday stuff, no matter what holiday it is, you might be celebrating or not celebrating, or just hanging out with friends, or just saying it's the end of the year, I want a vacation, screw everything. All that is coming up. And so December 25th would be next week's episode, and that, of course, is Christmas. And I'm going to be doing Christmassy stuff. Be back from a tour, relaxing, chilling out, healing my voice. So here's what we're going to do. For the December 25th episode, I'm going to re-release the most popular episode of 2018. I've dug into the stats. I know what it is. I'm not going to tell you yet. It'll be a surprise, but you'll dig it. It'll be fun. It's obviously an episode that people liked because it was the most popular episode of 2018. So that's coming up December 25th. On January 1st, which is the following Tuesday, Man, these holidays are really messing up the release schedule this year. On January 1st, we will have a new episode, but it's going to be kind of an experimental episode. It's going to be a surprise episode. It's going to be something I'm going to try. If you don't like it, I'll find out, and then we won't do it anymore. But if you do like it, maybe it's something we'll do another time or so. And then January 8th, we'll be back with a regular episode with an interview with Eric Anderson from Stormfront. And then we'll be off and running for 2019. It's going to be all good. So that is what's coming up over the next couple of weeks. And that is our show for today. Thank you once again for tuning in. I always do appreciate it. I appreciate when you tell your friends. That's a big, big thing. That the show does not grow unless you tell other people about it. I can tell people about it all day, and that only does a little bit. When you tell your people about it, man, that has a big, big effect. It really does. If you want to find out more about Michael Melzer and his book, The Patriot Pirate, go to melzermedia.com, and that will be in the show notes. And also, you can find out more about the Royal Presidio Chapel if you wanted to maybe visit that, the oldest building there in Monterey. And that is at sancarloscathedral.org. So lots of stuff coming up. Like I said, January 8th, we're going to have Eric Anderson of Stormfront. The following week, we'll have Liddell Joubert of Stable Seas, which is that'll be a show dealing with modern piracy. Lots of cool stuff in there. And next week, most popular episode of 2018, so keep an eye out for that. I think even if you've listened to it before, you're definitely going to want to listen to it again because it was one of my favorites of the year too, and it's very detailed. So you'll find out about that coming up next week. January 1st, we'll do that little experimental episode. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good. My voice will be in shape for it, and it's going to be a good one. And if you don't like it, well, we won't do it again. We'll find out. All right? So be good to each other. Have good holidays. I will see you next week. And now I'm going to go eat a garbage grinder at Luigi's. See ya.